So you are finished doing your hunt with your buddies and you want to keep a sentimental keepsake. You can get a shoulder mount done by the taxidermy, or you can get the antlers cut off and put on a plaque with a felt cap. You can also cut off the antlers and just have them lying around your house as decor. I personally like doing a European mount. I like how European mounts look, and it's cheap and easy to do at your house. I'm going to show you how to go about doing a European mount step by step. Things you will need will be a sharp knife so you can cut the flesh off before you boil the head. You're going to need some brushes and a needle nose pliers. I put OxyClean in the water to collect the grease while boiling the heads. You're going to need a pot. This pot will be good if you're doing one head at a time. You need the pot to boil them a second time. Boil the head. You are going to need peroxide in the water to whiten the bone. Warning: if you think about using bleach, it will eat away the bone and make it brittle over time. You need a propane heater and a large propane bottle because you're going to be boiling the heads over 3 hours. After the heads are boiled, I use a pressure wash to get the meat off the skull. Boil the second time for 1.5 hours with water and peroxide. After all the skulls are done being cleaned, you need to put some sealant on it. I like using this stuff. It's cheap and lasts a long time. If you want to mount it on a plaque, I like to use barn wood because it's easy to come across, and you use wire to attach the skull to the barn wood. Then of course you need your deer head that you have harvested that season. Warning: in this part it will be getting graphic as I cut the flesh off the head. I like to go around the antlers first just so it's easier when I get up to the antlers. Flip the head over and I start from the neck area because it's already opened and I can get close to the jawbone. I'm coming along the jawline to open up the skin around the head. I flip the head over and then I cut it away from the nose down the skull, cutting around the eyes. You have to be careful that you don't cut yourself. Once I'm done and I get close to the antlers, I try to find a way around the antler. I flip it over and then I cut the back of the head downwards to the antler. After a while cutting around the antler, I realized it won't be so bad if I leave some skin and hair around. It will just cook and boil off. Realizing the garbage bag that I am using was just getting in my way, I just threw it out of my way. Finished opening up one side of the antler, I worked my way over to the other side, then started cutting around it. There you go, I have the skin off the antlers and off the head. Now I would like to clean up the mess I've made. This is what it looks like when it's been flushed out. I'm going to turn it over and cut out the tongue. The more meat you have taken off the skull, the easier it'll clean after it's boiled. I run my knife on the inside of the jawbone to cut it away. Then I pull the tongue to see what's still attached and cut it free. Pulling the loose tongue out and up, I cut along to see where I can cut. There are bones in the back of the tongue. I pull and then I cut the tongue off. I like to cut the bottom jaw off, but this deer head has been sitting out for a couple days, so it's hard to remove, so I'm just going to boil it with the bottom jaw on and pull it off later. I try to cut out the eyes, but it's not fresh enough and the eyes have sunk in, so I'm just going to leave it and boil them out. Warning: doing the second deer head is still pretty gruesome and graphic. I repeat the same process, cutting along the outside of the jaw line to remove the skin away from the bone and cut away on the other side. This second deer head did not take me that much time to do because I had practiced with the first deer head. After I have it all opened up on the bottom side, I flip it over and start with the nose work on my way down to the antler. Working around the nose of the deer, you don't really have to worry about cutting into the cartilage that is in the nose because it will just get boiled and ripped out later. Finished cutting the skin off the second deer head, it came off easier. I flipped it over, then I cut the tongue out the same way I did with the first one, following the knife through the inside of the jawbone, cutting around the tongue. Once I think I got it loose enough, I've tried to pull the tongue through the jawbone. Once I get it through, I pull the tongue up and keep cutting it back. I pulled it hard enough that I ended up breaking the bone in the tongue, so it was easier to cut through where the bone was broken. Here I don't try to pull the jaw off because I know I'm just going to boil it out. Now that I have all my heads cleaned, I'll pull out my big pot that I'm going to use to boil all my deer heads. I have 2 skulls from last year that I skinned out and left out for the bugs to eat and pick clean. I wanted to see what the difference was between letting the bugs clean the meat off instead of just boiling the meat off. Now that I have all the deer skulls in the pot and have them set in it nicely, I'm going to add water. After I finished adding water, I made sure all the deer skulls were fully submerged underwater. It's okay if the antlers are sticking out, because I'll use the brushes to clean them off once the water heats up. I put the lid on my pot to keep the heat in. When the water is boiling, I add OxiClean. This will collect the grease that is coming off the skulls. After a bit, I come to check on how they are progressing. I also check on the propane to make sure it hasn't blown itself out and it's still running good. I see if I need to add some more oxygen into it to make it burn hotter. When the water is boiling, I will go and brush the antlers to clean them up a bit to get all excess blood that might be on them. After it's been boiling for 6 hours, because it was a big pot of water, it is time to remove the heads. I brush the antler one last time to make sure I get them nice and clean with the boiling water. Now it's time to pull the skulls out. Just by looking at them, I can tell that the meat would wash off easy. Can't really see through the steam, but the bones are showing pretty good. So I'm ready to take all of them out and put them in my basket that is plastic, so I don't leak gross water in my vehicle when I go to pressure wash the skulls off. all the skulls out of the pot, I take some time to go around with the brush and clean some of the deer grease that is around the rim of the pot. After I shut off the propane and the heater. Now that I have my skulls, it's time to take them to get pressure washed. Here are all the skulls that have been boiled. This is what you would like to see when you want to spray them off, that the meat is all shrunken. It's time to pressure wash the skull and take your time going around the antlers to get the missed flesh that you left on. You don't really want to get the pressure washer close to the skull in some spots because you will rip holes in the bone. I take my time pressure washing at the back of the skull because that seems to have the hardest tissue that hangs to the skull. I thought I could pull the eye out, but it was still stuck, so I just used the pressure washer and it washed out easy once I got a little bit closer with the hose. Flipping it over, I gently put my foot on the back of the skull so I don't use too much pressure, so now I can spray the meat off where the tongue would be because that is where the most of the tissue will be. Stepping on the antlers, I pressure wash the eye out and around the back and bottom of the jaw. Lightly washing in front of the eye is a key spot to be delicate. Then I wash out where the brain will be and I put the pressure wash hose in there and spray it out until it stops being white and the water turns clean. At this part of the skull I try to get as much off as I can. You definitely want to take your time and get a lot of water to the joint of where the spine and the skull meet. Tissue hangs on the most of that spot. Picking it up, I try to take a closer look to see where I've missed spraying around the inside of the eye socket and the nostril. Where there are little holes that I try to push the water through. Keep trying to get a thorough clean when you spray around the antlers. You don't want to get close because the pressure washer spray will spray the color off the antlers. Flipping it back over, I put the pressure washer hose back into the skull brain hole, trying to wash out as much brain as you can. Once the water starts running clear out of the skull where the brain is, you pretty much washed everything out. Holding the skull, I examine it to see if there's any other places I need to clean. Picking it up, I examine all the holes, and there is a big chunk of brain left there that I could just stick my finger in and grab it and pull it out. Once I think I've done a good job, then I clean the tissue off the floor and put it in the drain. Holding up the skull to show how good of a job I've done around the nasal cavity. There is cartilage, it's not a problem because I will just pull it out later with long needle nose pliers. Doing the second deer skull, I do the same procedure. I lightly step on the skull and pressure wash around the antlers, trying to get the hair that I missed. This second skull is one that the bugs have picked clean. Realizing the meat comes off pretty easy than the first skull that I just got that year. Washing the back side of the skull, I am careful not to pressure wash and poke holes to the bone. Washing around the teeth, eyes, and the antlers, try not to blow out that nasal cavity that's in front of the eyes. That will be the brittle part of the skull. Put my foot on the antler. I try to wash in the holes that are all around in the bone to clean out any bugs that might be dead in there. Picking up the skull and taking a good look to see where I might have to pressure wash it better. The back of the skull is where everything likes to collect. It's okay if you get close with the pressure washer there because the bone is thick. Taking a look to see now if the brain is still in there and some tissue is still on where the joint of the skull and spine meet. Holding the skull up, I like to wash well around the back of the skull because it's easy. Putting it down, washing the antlers but not putting a lot of pressure on it because I don't want to pressure wash the coloring off. Now that I'm done washing the second skull off and showing you guys the difference. Here is the difference between the skulls that I got this year. They are the fresh skulls that I got this year and the ones that I let the bugs pick and clean before I boiled them. These skulls here are ones that the bugs picked clean. I don't like how around the teeth it's darker and that certain areas of the bone are darker than yellow. Here is what the skull looks like after it's been boiled for the first time. It still has its nose cavity in and it's pretty yellow looking. This is a skull that I made a little while ago. I pulled the nose cavity out and then I boiled it in peroxide and water to whiten it up. Before I boil them for the second time, I like to pull off the eardrum bones because they have a lot of tissue meat holding them. This is what it looks like after you pull the eardrum bones off. If you leave them on, they will stink and they will turn yellow. Here I am working on pulling off the eardrums. All that you will need is your needle nose pliers, a knife, and you just pick away. Breaking the bone off and picking the extra tissue that will still be on the bone. After I finished taking the eardrum bone out, then I started working on the nasal cavity, pulling the cartilage out with the long needle nose pliers. I pull as much as I can out because while you're washing the skull off, there are big pieces of flesh and tissue that will get stuck in the nose. After I pulled most of it out, you have to be very delicate in how much you pull off around the sides because you will pull the nose cavity that sits in front of the eye and break a big hole in the skull. Reaching deep into the nose, I like to try to get as far back as I can. After getting most of it out, I can examine to see if there's any other little pieces that I possibly can pull out without breaking the skull in front of the eyes. Examine the inside of the nose and compare it to an older one that I did years ago to see if it is similar. Now that I have the eardrums pulled off and the nose cleaned out, I wrap the base of the antlers with saran wrap and electrical tape. When I boil them in water and peroxide, it will not bleach the antler's base white. When I put the saran wrap on the base of the antlers, I go a little bit underneath the antler's bone. Then I take my electrical tape and wrap them. I find it works best when I tape around the bottom of the antlers, and I work the tape up around the antler, trying to get it as tight as I can, so that any water does not get on the antlers. Here I'm doing another skull with time sped up. First I'm working on breaking the eardrum bone off with my needle nose pliers and a knife, cutting away extra tissue that is hiding behind the bone. Feeling around, seeing how much of it I could break off without breaking the skull. After I finished taking the eardrum bone out, then I started working on the nasal cavity, pulling the cartilage out with the long needle nose pliers. Now that I have all my skulls cleaned up and have the antlers wrapped up, it is time to boil them in water with peroxide. I find if you use water and bleach over time, the bone will get brittle and break away. Putting the heads in my big pot, I use wire to fasten them to the pot so they do not hang low in the water and peroxide. When you put the water and peroxide in it, just a little bit under the base of the antler, but make sure the back side of the skull is submerged under the peroxide water. If you have some of the antlers in the water, it might be okay if you wrapped it and tape it with saran wrap. Before I put the skulls in the water and peroxide, I like to measure up a skull on a piece of barn wood for a plaque, so I can make the plaque while the skulls are doing the final boil. I think a 16-inch plaque works the best. If you like how this video is turning out and it's helpful, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. When I was boiling the skulls in water and peroxide, The wind picked up, so I went out and put tin foil on to keep the heat and checked to make sure the propane didn't blow out. I used this pot to boil one skull in the kitchen with 1 container of peroxide. It was good enough for this pot size. I do not advise this because it made the house smell bad and the wife angry. Now that I have the one skull finished its peroxide boil, this is how it turned out. This other skull beside it is one that I let the bugs clean and boiled and sprayed. It is finished its peroxide boil, and I noticed around the teeth it's dark compared to the one that I have harvested this year. Now that I have all the skulls clean, I check the teeth to make sure if any of them are loose. If I find some that are loose, I just get super glue and I glue the teeth in. After the teeth have been super glued in, now it's time to put the sealant on the skull to prevent future dust from getting into the pores of the bone. I like to use Rejuvenate hardwood sealant. It comes out of the bottle milky looking, but when it dries clear, I just use a paintbrush and paint it on. I have done many European mounts with this bottle other years. A little goes a long ways. Here I'm painting the sealant on. I start with the top of the skull and work my way around, trying to be thorough. Trying to get into every little crack and holes that I could find. I think it would be a really easy way to have done this if I had a lot of this sealant. I could put it in a tote container and just dunk the skull and antlers in the Rejuvenate. After I'm done painting all of the skull, I like to paint the antlers as well. It will give it a nice glossy shine to the whole skull and antlers. Doing the second skull, I just repeated what I've done with the first skull. I start with the top of the skull and work my way around it, trying to get as much as I can in all the little cracks and holes in the bone. Flipping it over and doing the underside of the skull and trying to get everywhere covered as best I can. Then I have to paint the antlers with the sealant. I go and do a second coat on it to ensure that I get everything covered, and if I miss something the first time, the second pass will get it. After I'm done painting all the skulls, I let it sit for a while so it all dries. Here I have all 3 skulls that I have sealed. It's time to push the wire through the skull. I find that there is this bone hole in where the eye socket is that goes right through to both sides easily and will hold the skull firmly supported. Now that you have your skull sealed, it's time to put it on your plaque that you made out of barn wood. You'll use wire to fasten it through the barn wood that you drilled 2 holes in. I've put a brace on the back of it with these picture frame holders. Pulling out a long piece of wire from the roll, I like to bend it in half to fish it through the skull for more strength. After getting the wire through the skull and in the plaque, I just twist it together to fasten the skull to the plaque. I use pliers to twist the wire not too strong where it will start to break the bone but will hold the skull onto the plaque. Flipping the plaque over with the skull mounted, I give it a shake test to see if it moves at all. If it does, I would need to tighten it more, but it sits nicely on the plaque. I have 3 ways here. I have one on a plaque and one with the wire through it to hang on a hook. One skull just to put on a shelf for decor. I hope this video was helpful in doing your European mount. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up and subscribe for upcoming videos.